All right, we're going to talk about squaring some expressions, and all these expressions contain radicals. And so just remember that when we square a radical, let's just say if you have the square root of x times the square root of x, well, you're going to multiply what's underneath the radical sign together. So that's the square root of x squared. Well, that means you've got the square root of x times x inside there, and so I have two of those, so it just becomes x. So when it's like the squares and the square roots can sort of cancel each other out, or they're the opposite functions, so that's how you can get rid of a root, is by taking it by that power. So we're going to square every one of these expressions here and just get the hang of this. So if we take the square root of 5 and we square it, remember that means the square root of 5 times the square root of 5. That means you always write it twice. Well, you multiply what's underneath that radical sign, so that gives you the square root of 25. Well, the square root of 25 is just 5. So yes, you could just take the shortcut and say if I'm squaring something that's in or under a square root sign, it's just like these two sort of are opposite functions, so they get rid of each other and you're just left with what's under the radical sign. So hopefully that's maybe makes sense. Okay, so we've got 7 square root of x, and we're going to square that. So again, that means 7 square root of x times 7 square root of x. Well, notice that the 7 is on the outside of that radical sign, so we're going to multiply the 7 times 7, and that gives us 49. Now, from our previous example, we know when we say the square root of x times the square root of x, that just leaves us with x. So that answer is 49x. Now I could do that the long way also and say that's 49 square root of x squared. The square root of x squared is just x. So maybe that helps make more sense. I don't know. Okay, so then now we're going to say 3 times the square root of x minus 6. We're going to square that. Well, again, 3 square root of x minus 6 times 3 square root of x minus 6. Well, you can only multiply what's on the outside times what's on the outside. So the 3 times 3 is 9. And then the square root of x minus 6 times the square root of x minus 6 is just x minus 6. Well, I can distribute that 9 to both of those terms, and I'm going to get 9x minus 54. All right, so remember, if we have a binomial and we decide to square that, that means to write it twice, x minus 4 times x minus 4. And again, we're going to use sort of that FOIL method and say x times x is x squared, x times negative 4 is negative 4x, negative 4 times x is negative 4x, and negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. So just remember that square method, and then you're combining those like terms here. Remember, when we add those x's together, they just stay as an x. They don't become an x squared. That's going to be very helpful when we start doing these radicals again. Okay, so we've got the square root of x minus 2, and we're going to square that. So we have square root of x minus 2 times the square root of x minus 2. Okay, let's think about those foiling that. So square root of x times the square root of x. Well, just like we did up here, the top, we know that is just x. Okay, so then our next term, square root of x times this negative 2. Well, the negative 2 is a whole number, so he's on the outside of your radical sign. So it's negative 2 square roots of x. You can't put something under the radical that doesn't start in the radical. So now we're going to take this second term. We've got negative 2, and we're multiplying it by the square root of x. So that's another negative 2 square root of x. Then our final term is negative 2 times negative 2, which is a positive 4. Okay, so now you're seeing how we start multiplying out these radicals. And notice we've got two like terms here. And remember, we only add the outside. Negative 2 and negative 2 is negative 4 square roots of x plus 4. Remember, combining like terms versus multiplying those terms are two different things. All right, so these things are starting to get a little bit longer, and we're going to square the square root of x plus 1 plus 3. Now think about this is one term because it's all under the square root sign. So we've got the square root of x plus 1 plus 3 times the square root of x plus 1 plus 3. All right, so if we say we are going to take the square root of x plus 1 times the square root of x plus 1. Well, remember, anytime you square something that's under the root sign, you're left with it just outside of the root sign, x plus 1. So then next we're going to take the square root of x plus 1 and we're going to multiply it by 3. 3 is a whole number, so it goes on the outside of the radical. 3 square roots of x plus 1. Then we go to this 3 and we're going to multiply it times that square root of x plus 1. So that becomes 3 square roots of x plus 1. Last term is 3 times the 3, which is 9. Okay, so the key to these is just really taking it slow, doing one step at a time, not trying to jump ahead. And now we're just going to put these, combine any like terms that we have. So we've got the x. We've got 3 square roots of x plus 1 plus another 3 square roots of x plus 1. Remember, we're adding those like terms, so that gives us 6 square roots of x plus 1. Then we have our whole numbers 9 and 1, which gives us 10. So there is our final answer. All right, so we're going to do another one that's very similar to that. We're going to square it. So 1 minus 2 square roots of x plus 3 times 1 minus 2 square roots of x plus 3. Again, this is all one term. So you've got the 1 as one term, and then you've got that 2 square roots of x plus 3 as another term. All right, so 1 times 1, there's the easy part, 1. Then we've got 1 times this whole term, 2 square roots of x plus 3. Well, it's negative, so minus 2 square roots of x plus 3. Now we're going to take this term and multiply it by the 1. So it gives us another negative 2 square roots of x plus 3. Okay, here comes the hard one. Negative 2 square root of x plus 3 times negative 2 square roots of x plus 3. Well, let's take it one step at a time. A negative times a negative gives us a positive. The 2 times 2 is 4. And then the square root of x plus 3 times the square root of x plus 3, remember, is just going to be x plus 3 outside the radical sign. But it does have that 4 in front of it, so we do need to distribute that. Okay, so now we've got 1 minus, we've got negative 2 square roots of x plus 3, another negative 2 square roots of x plus 3. So that gives us negative 4 square roots of x plus 3. And then we're going to distribute this 4. So 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, so we are going to now put this in the correct format and join any like terms. So we're going to put our 4x, then we have our negative 4 square roots of x plus 3, And then we have our whole numbers, 1 and 12, which makes 13. So there is your final answer. Again, take those one step at a time. Take it very slow so that you don't miss anything. All right, so now we're going to do our last example, 2 plus 3 square roots of 3x minus 5. We're going to square that, which means, again, write it twice. Times 2 plus 3 square roots of 3x minus 5. Okay. So here we go. 2 times 2, 4. Let's draw a line here so we don't get these two mixed up. 2 times 3 square roots of 3x minus 5. Remember, this is one term because it's all multiplied together. Well, the 2 is a whole number. The 3 here is your whole number, so that's what you multiply together. So that gives us 6 square roots of 3x minus 5. Next, we're going to take this term, 3 square roots of 3x minus 5 times 2, so that gives us another 6 square roots of 3x minus 5. And then our last term is the 3 square roots of 3x minus 5 times 3 square roots of 3x minus 5. Well, we have to multiply those whole numbers together. 3 times 3 is 9, and then we're multiplying it by that square root of 3x minus 5 times the square root of 3x minus 5, which is just 3x minus 5. Let me rewrite all of that so you can see it. That's 4 plus 6 square roots 3x minus 5 plus another 6 square roots 3x minus 5 plus 9 times 3x minus 5. Okay, let's join our like terms. We've got 4 plus, again, we can only add the outsides of those, outside the radical, 12 square roots of 3x minus 5. Now let's distribute that 9. 9 times the 3x gives us 27x, and 9 times 5 is, or negative 5 is negative 45. So let's list these in correct order. 27x plus 12 square roots of 3x minus 5. Then let's join those whole numbers together. We've got a positive 4 and a negative 45, which is going to make negative 41. There is your final answer. Those are not too hard as long as you take one step at a time and just take it very slow. Write them out if you need to.